Are there any other moments in your life as an entrepreneur and just an individual where a similar path has happened, where you've only really persevered through, I guess, like faith and determination?
I mean, I feel like that happens like every other week for me, but in some ways it feels like that as an entrepreneur. Uh, I, I mean, those are two big, like very more recent ones, but certainly that has happened like over and over and over again. And I think the biggest question for people is really discovering like, for me, I've seen that as a trend, and it feels like it's always that way. It's like these peaks and valleys that you go through, but then like and you can have a tendency to believe that there's something wrong with you when that's happening. It's like, why do I keep hitting a ceiling? Now granted, if you're hitting a ceiling at the same level every single time, there probably is something wrong with you. There probably is something that needs to get figured out, right? That's where the mindset game comes in. That's where the mental game comes in. That's when it's figuring out that it's like, what is the mental block that's holding me back? There's probably something big there. And I've worked through many of those, worked with coaches and mindset coaches and therapists and facilitators and all sorts of people to break down those, beliefs that I maybe learned growing up as a child that are fine, but like they're not serving me in what I'm trying to do or in my goals. Right. And so when you learn how to break those things down, like, then that helps you kind of break through that. But the idea of the peaks and the valleys is normal. That always happens. And you're going to hit peaks and you're going to hit valleys. But like, as long as the peaks keep getting bigger, then you're in momentum. Okay. And so you want the peaks to continue to get bigger. But don't ever expect that like the valleys are going to disappear. Even huge, the biggest companies in the world go through this. They have media issues or something happens or whatever, and then they go through this huge valley and then they come back stronger later. And that's just a part of business. Like, business entrepreneurship is just continually solving problems, and it doesn't end. Like, there's no real coasting in this. And so I would say that, like, with the peaks and valleys, but I do believe that there is a certain amount of, when you've been through enough peaks and valleys and you start to recognize the pattern, the trend, and you start to recognize the things that are consistently causing the peak and the things that are consistently causing the valley. So for me, for example, like we've talked about, one of the things that I noticed keeps on consistently causing peaks is focusing on one thing. So it's like, okay, now I have that in my memory bank. The only way I could ever really truly know that is by going through lots of peaks and valleys. People could tell you that. In fact, there's people listening to this podcast, I'm telling it to you right now, but you won't ever really learn it until you experience it. That like, that is a thing that causes peaks. And so when you start to learn those things and get that's the thing, like, oh, that's what I need to do. And then you start to notice, what are the things that cause valleys, right? Maybe it's me letting off the gas, or maybe it was me, self-sabotaging, or maybe it was, me pivoting or changing directions, or what are the things that are causing those valleys? And when you start to see those, you go, okay, it's kind of like the theme of this whole podcast. You pay attention to the things that are working and you do more of those things, and you pay attention to the things that are not working and you do less of those things. And what you'll find is that you can kind of smooth it out, right? Where it's not like dramatic high and extremely low, like crazy depression. And then like, we're rich and we're going to be amazing and successful. And then like, we're dying. And it's just like, it starts out that way. But then when you learn, oh, I need to do more of this and less of this, now you're looking at, things like this, where it's just little valleys, and then you continue with that momentum because you know what to do when you end up in one of those valleys.
I like that. You talked a lot about mental mindset. I like that a lot. One of the things that really cued in, and you said it worked for you when the peak started taking off, was when you said that things weren't working, the lighting business. You first started that offer. I mean, that's very niche, first off. So you pick something specific. I think that's really important because people are all over the map. I know we are. I'm all over the map. I do real estate. I'm all over the map. But what really worked for me is when I got real specific, but then it wasn't working at first. But when you asked the question, I think is critical, is how do we make this work? And I think something switches on in the mind because, you pick something, you're committed to it. Now, how do I make it work versus pivoting and changing gears? I see so many people do that. I know you're talking to clients all the time and they're like, hey, it's not working. Eric, it's not working. I want to do something else. You're like, well, you've been in it for 2 months. Let's just focus. And so how are you kind of getting people or selling them on themselves really to get them to believe that what they chose is going to work?
Yeah, I think the question you have to ask yourself is like, have you really exhausted all your resources to make this work?
Yeah.
And I think too often we give up before we have. And that's why you get people that go, oh, YouTube doesn't work, or short form video doesn't work. Webinars don't work. Okay. Challenges don't work. The 2 Comma Club isn't real. it's like, it's those things, like they all work. Every strategy out there works. It works. It's a strategy because it worked for someone. And the reality is that it's not that the strategy doesn't work. It's that you don't do the work is the problem. And and this is the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs, is that we jump from thing to thing to thing to thing. You dip your toes into one thing, and it's like, that one doesn't work. So dip your toes into another thing. But like you never actually, if you never commit to one thing, like really go fully all in on it and say like, I'm doing this for the next year. That's what I did with content. I said, I'm making a video every day for a year. And that's what I did. And then boom, look what happened. It took off. Now I'm like looking for like, what's the next thing that I can do every day for a year that will make things take off, right? So it's that commitment. That's really the name of the game. Like that's what makes it work.
100%.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree anymore. So with that said, what tactics and strategies do you have for helping people kind of figure out what it is that they want to commit to? Because I know that there's a million different opportunities that they have to do this for, both professionally and personally. Like they can go in on a random personal brand about like me, for example, rock climbing versus like doing financial education or something like that. It's like, how do you help people determine those different paths?
I take people through an exercise of really figuring out what I call their design. Okay. And to put this briefly so that we don't run over time here, your design is made up of 4 things. It's your strengths, your passions, your values, and your energy. And that to me is like, and the reason why I do this is because I think there's a certain level of, if you really want to create something that is going to work, is going to work long term, and is going to be meaningful long term, and it's not something that you're just going to want to pivot away from immediately, you have to really build from your design. Now this is different from the mentality of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm very business focused, and I'm just going to choose a target market, find a pain point, create a solution for that pain point, and I'm going to go and arbitrage that and make money. Okay. That's fine too. That's a very much an entrepreneurial approach to things. For somebody like me, or anybody who's listening, who's like, maybe like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur too, but I also have this kind of like creative heart, and I care about, doing things that I care about, and I want to do something that I'm passionate about, then that's where your design comes in. And I do think that even if you are entrepreneurial and want to do things like that, like I have side projects that I do that are like that as well. Like this is just a money-making venture, right? But when it comes to my personal brand and my content and my courses and coaching, like it's very much built around my design. And your design is your passion, strengths, your values, and your energy. Your passions, the things that you like to do. Okay. Your strengths, the things that you are naturally good at. Your values, the things you care about. And then your energy is how your body works, how your energy works, because that's different for everybody. And everybody has this unique DNA of these 4 things that nobody else can compete with. It's the way that you are. And essentially the idea here is that when it comes to really like devoting your life's work to something, the more that you can be in alignment with your natural design, the more effective, the more efficient, the more successful you're always going to be. Now, you don't have to choose to do that. You have the agency to choose to do whatever you want. You could do something that is out of alignment with who you are, but you're always going to be in conflict, okay? Because your natural rhythm is going one direction and you're trying to take it another direction. And so as long as you can, it's always advantageous to understand what that design is and to be able to lean into it and to accept it. And this to me is very like, this gets into like, I'll be honest, a little bit more like woo-woo stuff, right? But I really believe in this, and I really think it's important. because it gets more into nature instead of nurture. There's nurture, like who you've become, and then there's nature is who you are. And there are certain things that are encoded into us to be the way that we are, to have a certain personality, to have a certain energy, to have certain interests and passions. Some of that may have come from like growing up or how we were nurtured as well, but you can't change the fact that that's just the way that you are. Well, I'm not going to say you can't change that. You can change it, but these are the types of things that change very slowly over time. It's not like overnight, oh, I got this new hobby that I'm interested in. We're talking about like your personality doesn't just change like that. It maybe will over time with repeated exposure to certain situations. And so the more you can just accept that, oh, this is the way that I am. This is the way that the ship is already moving. This is the way that the river is already flowing. I'm just going to drop myself into that river and go with it, go with the flow, rather than trying to compete against it, puts you in a place where now you have the opportunity to be the most efficient, most productive, most successful version of yourself. And so that's where I typically start people out with is like, let's just discover that just so that you can be aware of it, if nothing else. And when you build your business, from personal experience around those things, it's more fun. It's more exciting. It grows faster. It's less stressful. It'll make you happier. You'll be more fulfilled. All of these benefits come from it because you're in alignment, you're in flow, you're doing things the way you like to do them. And so my business, my brand, my coaching, everything that I'm doing, within this realm, my book and all that kind of stuff is very much built around the things that I'm interested in, that I like. It's very much built around the things that I'm naturally good at. Like talking about this stuff is not hard for me. Like I could probably spend another 10 hours doing this, right? This is just natural. It comes with the territory for me. Things that you are that you care about, that are interesting to you, like this is very much tied to a mission for me, and things that I think are important in terms of being an entrepreneur and being a creator and putting your message out there and sharing it with people and doing positive things in the world and building things. I think that's very important for people to do. And then my energy, getting clear on like, oh, you know what, like I won't do certain things in my business because I know I just don't operate that way. Or there are certain things like I'll only take this many calls every day, or I have this much personal space set aside every day because I know how I work. Other people are going to be different. It's totally fine. They can do it their way. But I know how I operate, and I set up my business and the structure and the calendar and the to-do list and everything around that energy. So when you're clear on those things, it allows you to be in alignment and allows things to go just so much smoother.
Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.